Good morning. Transfer deadline day at the end of August. Sometimes a damp squib, Sean Martin. Sometimes it can be exciting. Globally, I think it's been one of the biggest transfer markets we've ever seen. Transfer windows we've ever seen, sorry. For Celtic, there's been a fair bit of movement and probably expecting a wee bit more today. Felipe Jota from Benfica on loan potentially with an option to buy. And VVV Venlo striker Georgios Giacomakis potentially coming in. And we're expecting Edouard and Ryan Christie to leave Celtic today. Just off the cuff, how are you assessing this window?
The full window. We're going straight into that. Full window, right? Well, when you ask about the full window...
We can leave that till the end if you want.
No, it's fine. No. If you want to dive straight into that. If you're asking about the full window, I would say that the underlying question there is, has Postecoglou been backed adequately, really, is what the question would be for assessing the overall window. And I think when you look at the figures that they've brought in, you've got Joe Hart, Carl Starfelt, Juranovic, McCarthy, Kyogo, Abada, as well as a few others who frankly don't look as if they're first team ready. Some debate about Liam Scales, obviously, but we'll wait and see with that one. I think in terms of numbers alone, you could argue that yes, he has been backed, and in which case it would be viewed as a decent window. In terms of timing, for me, no, he wasn't backed. I think business was again not concluded quickly enough. And I think as an example of that, you just have to look across the other side of the city to see that it's not them scouring about for first team ready signings with just hours left in the window again. In terms of quality, I suppose most of that remains to be seen, but Hart's certainly done well enough. Kyogo's been superb. Abada's impressed as well. Starfelt's been shaky, but he's played well at times as well. You could argue the wisdom of handing McCarthy a 4-year deal. But again, let him play some games before that judgment's handed down, I suppose. Juranovic just in the door, done well in his debut. Overall, I suppose you could argue he's been backed and that would make it a decent window, but on the face of it, that's just on the face of it. And for me, he's not been back quickly enough, and it remains to be seen if it's been the correct calibre of player to make it a successful window.
Well, a lot of the chat seems to be that a centre-back is a top priority today. Nobody's really been linked as far as I'm aware, Sean. The two that are apparently close to joining Celtic, one winger, Jota, and a striker, Giacomakis, and I suppose that would be direct replacements for Edouard, who's expected to go to Palace, and Ryan Christie, who, in my opinion, unbelievably, is allegedly heading to Bournemouth after being linked with several kind of really quite attractive clubs. And not that Bournemouth aren't a completely attractive proposition. I'm sure he'll earn good money and live in a nice seaside town and all that. But I mean, Sampdoria, Nice, Monaco, all these clubs were muted. And I know that it might be a good stepping stone for Christie on a personal level if he can get to the Premier League. But I feel like it's an unnecessary detour for a player of his quality.
No, I'd agree with that. I think, you know, I'm a big fan of him. I think if he was to have stayed under Ange, I think he would have taken his game at a different level. I don't think he'd be going to a Bournemouth. I don't even think it would be a Burnley. I think it would be a better club for him than those. I would actually quite have liked to have saw him if he was leaving, going abroad. I think he would do well abroad. I think we always knew this was a possibility, though, that he was going to leave, given the contract situation, and there was hints that we wanted to try down south if he could. I suppose what you've alluded to there is what probably will grate with most fans is the level of club that he's going to. Overall, though, I think you can't forget he was a good player for Celtic. Seized his chance when a fair few probably thought he wouldn't make the grade at Parkhead. Became an important player for a few seasons. Had a good goal record for a midfielder, despite the flack that he supposed rightly copped last year for his shooting. Scored one against Hearts. We'll probably speak about another cup final goal against Hearts when we move on to Edouard. For me, I think he would have taken his game at a different level under Ange, but good luck to him down south. If he goes, he's got the work rate and the quality to do well pretty much anywhere. But you're right, the level of club he's going to probably grates with a lot of fans.
I think what some people maybe will have hoped for is an 18-month extension, and that will have meant he could have played without uncertainty this year, and then with a year left on his deal, Celtic could have sold him at that stage rather than just with 6 months, as is the case right now.
Well, that's what I've been advocating for the last month and a half or whatever. I mean, I do genuinely, it ties into what I just said there, that I think he would have taken his game at a different level. I think it would have suited all parties. The only difference being that if he wanted to go now, then you can't make someone stay, and Celtic shouldn't be a club that looks to make someone stay if they want to leave. You obviously hear that statement, nobody's bigger than the club. I don't think for a minute that's what Ryan Christie thinks, but at the same time, the club's got to conduct themselves in that way. So if they made him an offer, if they did make him an offer, and it was a decent offer, and he still wants to go, then good luck to him. It's all you can say at that point is good luck.
We'll come back to Edouard in a wee minute, but let's work off the basis that he's leaving as well, right? Okay, so Edouard and Christie out, and let's work on the hypothesis that Giakoumakis comes in alongside Jota. Is that a forwards, backwards, sideways step, those 2 for 2?
You would, I mean, it's hard to say that before they've come and you see how they settle and how they fit into the system. I think it would be hard to replace Edouard. I think, despite the kind of criticism he's come in for the last 6 months or so, I think he will be remembered as a supremely talented player. Scored some big goals, obviously the treble winner, chief among them. I think if my stats are right, I think he scored in 7 goals in 14 Glasgow derbies, which is a decent record. All things considered, a couple of really good goals in there. Top scorer every season he was here permanently. Again, hard to replace that. Good for 20 goals a season since he joined permanently as well. Even if we do think Kyogo maybe suits the style Ange wants to play through the middle more than Edouard did, I still think it will be a hard replacement. And whether Giakoumakis can do that, I think it's two different types of players you're talking about. So it really depends. And at the end of the day, his statistics, his goal tally will be how you judge it.
Yeah, he's a completely different striker to Giakoumakis as well. The profile that we wrote on him and the people that we've, the Dutch experts that we spoke to on him suggest that last season was a bit of a freak for him. Like absolutely nobody. It's the equivalent of an Aki's striker being top scorer in the Premiership. You know, like it's just something that nobody expected. And
yeah, are you saying he's Michael Higdon in this scenario?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. So we'll see what happens whenever he makes his move, whether it's to Celtic or Bremen or anywhere else. But an intriguing one, certainly. Quite excited to see if Jota makes the move to Celtic, actually, because we wrote a profile on him yesterday, Sean, and a lot of the analysts seem to be describing him as Patrick Roberts with more pace. Patrick Roberts was an exciting player at Celtic, and when he came back for his second spell, he didn't really quite hit the heights that people expected. But Jota, I think, maybe has a bit of a point to prove. He was a very, very highly rated teenager in Portugal, was impressing at the Euros under 17 level, under 19 level, and hasn't really made the breakthrough yet. Had a loan spell at Valladolid in Spain where kind of was in and out of the team, didn't really make much of an impact. So if he comes in, then playing for a team that has the ball more often than not, in a league where hopefully he can utilise his pace, should be something that maybe suits him.
I think so. I mean, as you say, we done a profile on him. That, as much as you don't want to put too much stock in talking about a youth career, the last person that we signed with a youth career even slightly near what Jota's was Edouard. He was a standout as a youth player. Obviously, it was harder to break through at PSG. But Jota's youth career is it's unreal, really. I mean, from under 15 to under 21 level, more than 70 caps, scored regularly, won multiple international tournaments as a youth player, and was in the team of the tournament at the ones that they did win. Got a golden boot as well. It was a real good crop, and he was one of the standout players. Obviously, as you've alluded to there, we spoke to people from that have covered him as part of their remit covering Portuguese football in general, and he hasn't really adapted to the senior game the way that they expected him to, which is a worry. But at the same time, sometimes, as you've alluded to as well, sometimes you just need a better fit. It's hard for him to break through at Benfica. He went on loan to Valladolid, and he was played right wing where he usually plays left wing. Again, he was playing in a team that wasn't necessarily one that was going to dominate games, which might suit his style more. So I'm quite excited by it if they get him. I was just to see how he fits in, to be honest. And he's dribbling alone. Some of the stuff that you see in the YouTube clips, and I know you don't want to base it on that because we based that on Barcast as well. Yeah. You don't want to judge it on that, but some of the stuff that he pulls off is bum off your seat stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's what fans want, isn't it? So, it'll be exciting times for Celtic fans if he comes. We've got a couple of comments coming in about Giakoumakis. You've got one saying that he'll prove good business, and David Bradley saying that we need more height in the team. Well, Giakoumakis is a big, powerful striker, so perhaps, David, that's exactly what you want. And the boys on Twitch, not sure if that's confirmed or not, but certainly seem to think Griffiths is on his way to Dundee. Now, Sean, Griffiths seems to have no future under Postecoglou, despite just signing the new deal, a couple of months ago, maybe. Is it necessary that him and Ayeti maybe are moved out this season on loan or permanently?
I think so, and I don't think it is confirmed. I think that's still just a report at this point, as far as I can see on the both clubs' websites. But I think in terms of exits, when you're talking about Griffiths, he now divides the fan base, and not for good reasons, like in the way that maybe Samaras divided the fan base. Everybody knew what he was capable of, and he just didn't do it that often. I think Griffiths now divides the fan base in a way that I don't think is reparable, really.
Irreparable, yeah.
Aye. Although at times over the past year and a half or so, it's looked like he could still contribute. It's maybe time he did go elsewhere, even if it is on loan for a while, because his wages probably the kind of club, if it is Dundee or any club like that would want him, Celtic would still need to pay his wages. There's no way that's going to be a transfer. So even if it is on loan, maybe it would suit Celtic to cut him loose for a while anyway.
There's a few big earners at Celtic that they should probably look to see if somebody can at least pay 50% of the salary for the coming season. I'm thinking Barkas, I'm thinking Bolingoli, and I'm thinking Ayeti. And well, it depends where Griffiths goes. If he was to go down to, I don't know, Sunderland or something like that, I'm sure they could afford to chip in. But Dundee and the rest of the teams in the Premiership, probably not, apart from a couple of grand maximum. But those are four players that Celtic could do with really trying to shift off the wage bill in some way, yeah?
I think so. Again, this depends if there are shooters. Then, yeah, I agree with you. Barkas and Bolingoli, Griffiths certainly. Ayeti, I mean, to me, it summed it up on Sunday when Celtic were in need of a goal and he didn't feel like he could turn to Ayeti. Whether that was tactical because he wanted Kyogo through the middle and wouldn't really want to put Ayeti anywhere else and didn't want to play two up front, maybe. But I still think it is telling that in a derby, with the only striker on his bench, he didn't feel that he could turn to him. So again, though, it depends if there's shooters there willing to pay some of the wages or willing to take them on loan or even buy them. Just not sure there will be suitors for them, but we'll see.
Dundee do seem to be the club most rumoured with Lee Griffiths. George Snedden here proffering that he might go to Hibs on loan. Well, in fact, saying no doubt he'll go to Hibs on loan. I wonder if the reason that the Dundee deal hasn't been concluded maybe is because that's an option that Celtic might explore and bring in Nisbet if Ayeti is able to be shifted out. I know these are all hypothetical and ifs, buts and maybes, but this is sort of how the market works.
I take your point. From Hibs' point of view, as much as if it was, for instance, to become a transfer centred around Nisbet rather than Griffiths himself, from Hibs' point of view, do they want to risk taking Griffiths? I don't know. I don't know if they would be looking at that as a positive or not.
Well, they have Doidge is injured till Christmas as well. Remember, so they don't really have many. They've got James Scott on loan already.
James Scott. They can play Boyle, although he's obviously far more effective out wide. They can play him through the middle. I just don't know if they would want to touch Griffiths just now, the way that everything's surrounding him and all that. You never know, though. You never know. It could be a make weight or something like that if it was to be a move for Nisbet. You don't want to go over old ground with Nisbet because I don't think it has emerged again today. But what I will say about him is I'm surprised there's seemingly been a lack of concrete offers from down south from in the summer. I expected there to be. You could argue that does open the door for Celtic today if they want him. Scores goals in Scotland already. He's improved over the past. His improvement basically has been exponential the last few seasons. He's basically went up a level, including international, eventually getting capped, and he doesn't seem out of place in any of them. So who's to say he couldn't carve himself a place in the team at Parkhead? That said, I think the fee that Hibs would probably ask for, and rightly ask for, would be a decent one. And if Giakoumakis is arriving and Kyogo's going to be hopefully playing central, are Celtic really going to want to spend decent money on Nisbet when he wouldn't be a guaranteed starter, is what I would ask. Yeah,
it makes no sense for Nisbet really in that way either. But I think this is actually a non-starter, Sean, maybe because if some of the comments that are coming in here suggesting that Griffiths is in Dundee at the moment, I'm afraid that's something I've not seen, Sean. I don't know if you've seen it, that there must be pictures or videos circulating of Griffiths up in Tate So we'll see what materialises there over the next wee while. I don't really feel we've touched on Edouard enough. I think you're quite right to point out that he should be well remembered, and he has to strike while the iron's still fairly hot, and it cooled down a wee bit over the last season, but he's still got interest enough to go down to the Premier League. 1 year left on his deal, yes. So 15 million roughly from Palace, I think, is what they're going to be paying Celtic. I'm not sure, to be honest, if that includes add-ons or excluding add-ons, but I think that 15 million for Edouard at this stage anyway, it might not be the 25-30 that people envisaged 12 to 18 months ago, but 15 million at this stage, decent business.
I suppose it depends on PSG's sell-on clause, but I think
it's 50. It's 50% of the profit, isn't it? So that means that
very Football Manager.
So, yeah.
I think getting that amount of money for him, I think it's all right. I think you can just about accept it. I think it's you're right. If the contract situation, similar with Christie, if the contract situation had been taken care of maybe sooner, then it would be more. I think even though he's had, by his own standards, a poor couple of months and stuff, I think it would be more. But the fact that he had a year left in his deal, that's why I've been so convinced he was going this summer. I think it was the only avenue really open to Celtic, on the assumption he wasn't going to sign a new deal, because it would have went down in the column of bad business if he left on a pre-contract that he signed in January and they went for nothing after what Celtic paid for him.
A few comments coming in, Sean, about Lewis Ferguson. We did a profile, or I think it was Craig Nisbet actually did a profile on him yesterday about what he might bring to Celtic. Now, we know there are obvious connections with his family at the other side of the city. I think that we now can look past that sort of thing. I think enough players have crossed the divide in terms of who they supported when they were younger and who they played for when they grew up. But Lewis Ferguson, Ali McCann and Jason Kerr are the three that currently play in the Premiership that are not exactly strongly linked with Celtic, but seem to be proffered by fans as potential solutions in the long term. Any of those three interest you?
Aye. It was Ross Goodwin, by the way, that done the Ferguson scouting.
Sorry.
Aye, just in case he'll be listening going off. Come on now, boys.
Apologies, Ross.
No, I like Lewis Ferguson. I think he's a good, talented player. I think he's actually going to. I think he'll probably improve this season more than he has, even though he scored more goals last season. He was taking penalties and stuff. I think playing alongside Scott Brown up in Aberdeen will benefit him. If Celtic were to move for him, I'd have no problem with it. I think he would improve the squad. Whether he would be directly into the team right away, I don't know. It maybe be one of those things, horses for courses, depending on the opponent he would maybe start. I think he's a talented player. I also think, I know you're a big fan of Ali McCann. I think he's a good player as well. I do disagree with you that I think he could replace Callum McGregor in the team. I don't think he can do that role the way that McGregor does. I don't think anybody can. But I think these players would be good additions to the squad. Whether Celtic are actively looking at them, depending on the fees. I think Aberdeen would maybe ask for a decent fee. St Johnstone would have every right to as well, although I'm not sure actually when Ali McCann's contract expires. For some reason 2023 is coming to my head, but I don't know if that's the case. But I think they're talented boys. I think they could add something to the squad, certainly.
We've got a comment here from James Rees saying if Celtic get a ball-playing centre-back, it will take them to a new level. Well, I think that's what the hope is for Starfelt, isn't it? And I think that's maybe why Celtics don't seem to be being linked with, I don't know, Jason Kerr or any other centre-backs out there, because when Julian comes back, that's another fit and available player alongside Welsh or alongside Starfelt, and then Scales, who's just come in, and then in case of emergency, I know you don't like it, but Beaton is the utility.
I think, unfortunately, that probably will be the way that it goes. I don't know. You said it yourself. There's a distinct lack of centre-backs being actually reported. That's not to say that they're not working on something in the background, and they very well might come out with another centre-back today. But I don't know. For some reason, I'm thinking if they do, it's going to be a loan deal. Because I think the first choice centre-backs are there already. I think Julian, when he comes back, will be expected to be the first choice along with Starfelt. I think we've made the case in recent weeks that Welsh has improved enough that he almost makes it a debate. I don't think Starfelt's there to be the ball-playing centre-backs. I just don't think that's his game. I think he still looks a wee bit nervous on the ball. I think it's no coincidence that Sunday's probably his best game in a Celtic top, and that was the game that that it was more physical, if you want to put it that way. That Roofe and Morelos were bothering him all game, and I think he actually preferred that a lot of the time. I think he's been at his kind of shakiest when it's been ball at the feet stuff and concentration stuff rather than rather than actually being his best at that. So I think Welsh out of the two of them has actually been better with the ball at his feet. And I think obviously Julian, if he comes back to full fitness as expected, he's probably the first choice and the ball player.
We've got a comment here actually, but it came up in conversation earlier when we were talking about Jota, but Thomas is asking about Patrick Roberts and a free transfer. I have to admit, I've not kept up to speed with Roberts over the past wee while. I know he was at Derby, but I'm not sure of his contract situation. Is that him finished at City, Sean? Do you know?
I think he's been finished at City for years, even if he was under contract.
Yeah. Is that his employment at City finished?
His employment? I don't know. I'm not sure.
No.
I would have thought that even if it wasn't, are they really going to ask? Are they really going to ask for much? I don't know. If he's out of contract, that's a different scenario. I'll just tell you here. No, he's out of contract next season. End of this season coming. Unless it's been terminated, and that's what somebody's referring to, then I think by free they probably mean they're willing to let him go more than anything else.
Right.
It might suit Ange Postecoglou. I mean, he certainly suited Brendan Rodgers, and it's maybe doing him a disservice because he was a really talented player. But when he was at Celtic, you could argue that his biggest contribution was driving James Forrest to a different level as well. I think his presence alone and the way that he could play, I think that prompted James Forrest to really hit a different gear. Whether that would be the same again, I don't know. But if he was to come back, I would have no qualms about it. I thought he was a really good player.
Well, we'll keep an eye on things throughout the day. I expect it to be fairly busy for Celtic and Postecoglou today. With Christie and Edouard nearing the exit door by the second, it would seem, and Giakoumakis and Jota coming in potentially. We've had Giakoumakis linked with Celtic for about 3 weeks now, and of course it's going all the way down to the wire. So we'll see what happens with that one. And then, as plenty of the comments are suggesting, centre half. We don't know. So we'll find out soon enough whether there is a centre half on the way or not to kind of beef up the options back there. But yes, sure to be an exciting day. And as you can see at the ticker at the bottom, you can subscribe to the Celtic Way for just £3 a month. I think it's a great deal if you're interested in all things Celtic. We've got tactical analysis, videos like these, opinion pieces from esteemed writers. So get involved, and we'll be back tomorrow morning, Sean. Cheers.
Cheers, Andy.